Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello, and a very warm welcome to this evening's episode. It is Friday, the 31st of October, 2025. So happy Halloween if you are celebrating. I've just had an entire can of Red Bull because I am absolutely shattered, and I thought I really need a little pep me up for this evening. So if I start talking increasingly faster as the episode goes on, that is why, as it's kicking in. So, Halloween, I went to my first ever Halloween party last night. And the only connection it has to cut flowers, which is why I'm telling you, is because it was hosted by one of my fellow local growers. And she was kind enough to invite me. And it was the most incredible event, one of the best events I've ever been to in my life. This lady is an organizational genius, and it was all set up for children. So, absolutely right up my street, because I find that most adult things are just a bit boring and like totally focused around alcohol, which is just not a good idea. And this was all about kids, and I love doing fun things. Kids get to do so much fun stuff. And there's sort of this moment in your life when you stop doing fun. Well, okay, I stop doing fun things and you start doing adult things. And honestly, kids stuff, so much more fun. So there was like a walk through the woodland, and you had to collect stamps, like literally collect stamps on an A4 piece of paper. And then the kids all got goodie bags. And there was a hog roast, and there was a film on for the kids in another room. Amazing food. There was a hog roast and fireworks. Oh my goodness, like the best firework display. I don't even feel the urge to go to a firework display this year. Normally they're pretty boring, and I go to the same one every year and it's rubbish, but I feel like I'm done. Tick that box now. So happy Halloween to you. Today I bumped into my dahlia mentor, Richard Bailey, as I was going to the supermarket. So I did a very European thing and just dumped the car on the side of the road, blocked all the traffic, and we had a bit of a catch up. He has a ton of complimentary dahlias for me, which is really amazing. So this is what happened last time. So he mentored me all year last year. And at the end of the season, he had dahlias that hadn't worked out for him, or hadn't performed as well as he thought, or just didn't exhibit properly. So he grows slowly for exhibition, and then he gives his stems away to friends and family and people that he knows. But anything that doesn't make the cut in terms of exhibition, he will just give away, which is just incredibly generous, because obviously he's paid money for these guys in the first place. Anyway, he's got a few varieties for me, so we just have to schedule a date for me to go over and dig them up, and then I'll need to put them in the ground up on the plot so that they don't overwinter in crates again, because we're not going through that whole car crash again. And then very kindly, I had a message from the lovely, wonderful owner of the plant nursery down the road that I was busy making hanging baskets for. So if you've been listening since like April, May this year, I was making hanging baskets in greenhouses, like in our first heat wave, and it was very, very hot. Anyway, she's wonderful. She offered me some pink anemones, Japanese anemones that have got out of hand and outgrown their space. So I need to go and see her next week and dig them up, which is lovely because I actually bought pink anemone last year, a double, and it's done absolutely diddly squat this year. Nothing. It looks exactly the same now as it did when I bought it. So I'm going to dig it up and see exactly what's gone wrong with it. I thought I won't mess about with it during the growing season in case I upset it. But I probably should have upset it because it's not flowered at all. And I've got lovely white Japanese anemones at home that I think I'm going to transplant some of them up there. I don't find that mine are particularly invasive and spreading. Mine have kind of been the same size for years. So maybe they're not very happy here, because I know other people say, oh, they spread like mad and they just grow. And oh, well, that doesn't happen for me. Anyway, I've been listening to some really great episodes of other podcasts this week, which I want to share with you because I think they're really great. One is called Blooming Profits, and the other is called Slow Flowers. Now, they're both American, both hosted by women, absolutely jam packed with content. I have learnt so much this week. I've listened to hours and hours and hours, probably over 10 hours of podcasts while I've been out and about doing stuff. And I don't know how many times this week I have lifted my head from the depths of somebody's herbaceous bed and said, "What? You're growing how many?" And I listen on ear pods, so people probably just think I'm talking to myself and that I've lost the plot. But these podcasts are amazing. Like they're so inspiring. The US cut flower market is just insane. Like it's so exciting, it's so big, so well organized. People are just growing on the most incredible scale. Like I really can't wrap my head around it. And I feel like the UK market is so different. I mean, maybe it's the scale. I don't know. Or the British nature that we play everything down and it's, oh, just this tiny plot or this tiny patch. And then you listen to the American podcast and they're like, oh, yes, I'm putting 30,000 bulbs in, or I'm putting 100,000 of this in. And you think, oh my God, that's just mental. Anyway, UK growers at the moment are, well, some of them are cutting their dahlias down. Like I haven't had a frost yet. Like I think we got very close the other night, but we haven't actually had a frost yet. So I'm leaving mine up until we have a frost. They are still flowering like mad, mine, and I'm just cutting them and leaving them. Well, I don't know whether if you cut them the plant is obviously putting energy into the flowers rather than energy into the tubers. But quite honestly, the tubers are so big and the plants have done so well anyway that I wasn't too worried about energy going in the wrong place, if that makes sense. Because they're quite stonking plants. I'm going to leave them in the ground and then divide them in the spring anyway. But I thought I'm going to wait until the frost actually comes and then I can enjoy them for as long as possible because they really are just absolutely beautiful. Although sort of hurts me to say this, but I am kind of a bit tired of them now. They started in what, August, July, August. It just feels like a very long time of having them. They have been super productive out of all of the flowers that I've grown. But it's, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I've sort of got to that point where I'm like, okay, enough of the dahlias now. Um, what was I going to say? Um, oh yes, I was listening to a fantastic episode on one of these American podcasts, and I think it was Slow Flowers actually, all about lilies. Now, I absolutely love lilies, and I grow some at home that I bought at Chelsea Flower Show about a decade ago. Now, one of the unique things about Chelsea is that you can't really buy anything. It's not a show like Hampton Court where people actually take trolleys. That's probably because the car park at Hampton Court is about 70 miles away from the actual show and you have to walk like for what feels like forever. So people take those really amazing little trolleys on wheels and then they just buy loads of stuff and then they can just wheel it all back to the car because you'd never be able to carry it. But the thing about Chelsea is that you can't buy anything. Now, on the last day, they sell loads of stuff because nobody wants to take anything home. So if you go in on the last day, you can get some bits and pieces. But generally speaking, there is nothing for sale. But in the flower marquee, some of the exhibitors had managed to sell bulbs and tubers and corms and that kind of thing, like in little bags. And there was a new lily that came out, as I say, this has got to be a decade ago, called Largo. And I thought it was like the most beautiful lily I'd seen and incredibly scented because I'm all about scent. And so I bought a handful of them. And some of them are in the ground in my garden, and some of them are in a pot. And they have done incredibly well for the last decade. They come back every year, they flower absolutely beautifully. I don't do anything to them. I just leave them in the ground. I put a stake or cane in the ground over the winter just so I remember that they're there. And then I leave it up in the spring so that nobody walks over them, which has happened in the past. But the ones in the pots are doing absolutely brilliantly and they are just stunning. And the advantage of having them in a pot is that when they start flowering, you can move the pot to wherever you happen to be sitting in the garden. So I've got lots of different places that you can sit in my garden, which is deeply ironic because I never sit. Like I'm always doing something, but it's nice to have the choice. So there's shady options and sunny options, and you can sit on the north side or the south side or the west side or wherever you want. And I have a tiny garden, by the way. Like it's not like a huge garden at all. It's really, really tiny, really tiny. But I do think seating is very important. It just gives you the option to just sit. And before I had this kind of life, I used to sit a lot and just enjoy the garden. And now I sort of just seem to be just passing through all the time. But the point being, I keep digressing, is that if you have things that are beautifully scented or only flower very briefly, you can just keep the pot somewhere in the winter where it's not going to get too wet or freeze or whatever, somewhere sheltered. And then when the plant is just about to flower, you can just bring it out and stick it by whichever table or bench you're going to be using. And that's what I tend to do with mine. But what I learned today on this podcast is something called a rose lily, which you might already have heard about. And I am last to the table on this one. It's an oriental crossed with a trumpet hybrid. So it's a double. But the thing about it is that it has no pollen because it's a double. And I really want to look into these because I think I've just Googled them. I think they look absolutely stunning. So the thing I think might have put some people off about lilies is, of course, the pollen, especially if you're going to be selling them at market and somebody with cats buys them and the cats eat them and it's a disaster. I mean, that's true with lots of flowers. Like you don't want anybody eating foxgloves either. I mean, I would put foxgloves in a bouquet, but even I was thinking about pollen because it just stains your clothes. It's going to fall off in your car. It could be a bit of a nightmare. So a double lily with no pollen solves the problem on that. Now, if you suggest using anything that doesn't have pollen in the UK at the moment, people generally come and burn your house down because we're supposed to all be growing things for pollinators all of the time. And if the pollinators can't get to it, then you are basically the devil. But I think in my defense here, I'm growing so much on the field for the pollinators that I think I'm going to be given a hall pass on this one to grow some things that don't have any pollen. The second huge issue with lilies is the lily beetle. Now, I have a serious problem with them in my garden at home. And every year we have a battle over the lilies, and they always win, of course, because I don't spray or use any chemicals or treatments. The only technique is to go out there and just flick them off the plants. And of course, they just fall to the ground, they wait till I've gone, and then they just climb back on and carry on doing their adult business, which is mostly what they seem to be doing. I guess if you're stripping the stems to put them in a bouquet, you could strip all the damage off, assuming they don't eat the buds, which I don't think they do. I seem to remember they just do their business all over the leaves and then eat them and then move on to another lily. I'm not sure if there's going to be any options. I think I remember covering some in the past with some kind of mesh or something. Maybe I'm getting thinking of something else. I'm not sure. Or maybe there's some kind of garlic spray that could be applied. I'll need to look into that if you've got any tips or anything. Or even if you grow and sell lily flowers, I'd really be interested in what you're growing and what it's like and whether it's worth it. I mean the bulbs are perennials, so I'm guessing that is a good thing. Um, whether they'd be too big and too much for a bouquet, I don't know. I think I'm going to take a punt and get some and see what happens, test it out for next year. So I've also signed up for some more free online courses with some of my cut flower grower idols. So that will be Jenny Marks and Lenny Larkin. They both are incredibly generous. They give away so much information. And they do these little mini courses, little master classes that are free. They often use them as an opportunity, a great opportunity to promote, their paid courses and everything. But budgets are not allowing for those at the moment. But these free courses that they do are really fantastic. So maybe you've had a chance to do some of those as well. I do recommend them. Thank you also for messages. Some of you maybe, have sent me a message on Instagram this week. I had two really lovely messages from relatively local growers, like in the next county away. So one with suggestions for some perennials that they couldn't live without, which uh, was a great list and very helpful. So thank you for that. Also mentioning about thornless raspberries, which I need to look into because I have just planted out a ton of raspberries that I dug up from my garden, and of course they're covered in the thorns. So I need to get one of those. What do you call them? Dethorning tools that you can use. That's a conversation to be continued, though. And then a super lovely lady who sent me a message saying how much she was enjoying listening to the podcast, which is really nice. I love hearing that. Thank you. I never get over um, when you send me a message to say that you're enjoying the podcast because it's really nice. Because sometimes it feels like I'm just talking, well, either to myself, the dog doesn't listen anymore, or I'm just sort of shouting into the ether. So it's lovely to hear from you and know that you're there and you're listening. And this lady said that she listened to older episodes I've done to help her try and get to sleep, which I think is a really lovely idea. And I have to say, I do exactly the same. I don't listen to myself though. I listen to David Attenborough and David Suchet, who played Poirot. I just love Poirot. And I've got some Audible books by those two gentlemen, and I can be asleep within about 10 minutes listening to either of those two. David Attenborough is always a winner. I used to like thinking that perhaps I was soaking up information in my sleep, but it doesn't seem to have been the case. I just don't like total silence when I go to sleep anymore. My sleep is pretty horrific anyway. And music doesn't work for me because it just, I find it overstimulating. But David Attenborough or David Suchet talking gently in the background, that does it for me every time. But however you listen, or why, or wherever you are listening, you are very welcome to the podcast. Now, bouquet recipes. I'm going to finish on this, I think. I have been thinking about this since I was talking to you about it last week, about all the things that I would need to grow every month in all the different categories to be able to put a bouquet together to sell at market next year, which is the plan. And some experienced growers, educators, are suggesting keeping the number of plants that you grow to a real minimum. So that novice idiots like me don't go out and grow 50 different things and then ruin every single one, because there are so many individual techniques for all of these plants. And I like to think that I know my way around lots of ornamentals and lots of vegetables, but to actually, and I think I do, but on a very general level, like to get down into the granular, the really, really nitty gritty of how this plant wants to be taken care of at every single stage of its life. And then when you get to the good bit, which is the flower production, exactly the right time to be cutting the stems and how you condition them and when you want to be cutting and like all the nuance of that. And I guess what these growers are saying is that you should really get a handle on a smaller number of flowers and be able to do them really, really well and get yourself established as a grower that has beautiful flowers for sale, rather than somebody that's just got a whole ton of stuff and it's all poor quality, or it was beautiful quality and then they've cut it at the wrong time and just ruined it. But I've got to say, like, this is really hard, like, really hard. I mean, almost impossible. And I had pretty much said to myself, right, I'm not buying any more things. I'm not growing anything else. If it's not on the list, it's not going to happen. And then what happens? You get a catalogue that comes through the door, and I sit there and I read it, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll you know what I mean? You will know what I mean. Like, these brochures come, everything looks amazing, all looks really straightforward. Some of the flowers are like completely new to me. I haven't got a clue what it's like. And what's interesting is that I go through the entire brochure and I look at some of the things they sell and I think, yeah, I wouldn't grow that because I know how tricky that is. But there's me looking at other things going, oh, yeah, yeah, I want to have a stab at that. Yeah, I can do that totally 100%. So, what I thought I would do, I can hear people, if anyone knows me is listening, they'll be screaming in the background saying, don't do it, Lydia. what I thought I would do is maybe treat myself to like half a dozen packets of completely new things and just do a really tiny trial of these items to see whether I like them, to see whether they like me, to see what the flowers are like, just to practice and then, just really finesse the main core of flowers that I'm growing. Because once you start thinking about doing cut flower bouquets every week for a market, you have to have some variety in it. You can't just be growing like dahlias, sunflowers, and zinnias because that's not going to turn into any kind of bouquet. So I don't quite know what's going on there. Anyway, I think it's fine to just have half a dozen packets that are for trial purposes only, and that is the story that I'm sticking to. So it's Friday night. We have a whole weekend stretching out ahead of us. And I hope you have a wonderful time wherever you are and whatever you're doing. I still have a palette table on my list of things to do. So I shall see whether the other half is feeling like doing that this weekend. And we might have one of those constructed. But there are absolutely masses of things to do up there. Loads of things need to get in the ground that I bought earlier in the week in the plant sale, and mulching to be done, and the usual tasks that need doing. And it's a great time to be on the field at the moment. The soil is lovely, although it's a little bit slippery in places. That's the disadvantage of having a field on a slope. Wonderful for drainage, absolutely terrifying when you're trying to actually get anywhere from A to B. And I have slipped quite a few times, and it's getting a bit treacherous. So I will mostly be trying to stay upright this weekend. So, anyway, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I very much hope that you will come back and join me for the next episode on Tuesday. You can see the Red Bull's definitely kicked in now, hasn't it? I'm on a roll, but I'm going to stop because I've been talking for long enough. So, come back and join me next week, and all the best for the weekend.